Continuing in 9.2 from where we left off in part 1, this is part 2. So if we take all of these x's and y values and plot them on a graph, we're going to get a graph this way. And we can see that it does not cross the x-axis, so there are no real solutions to this one. So the graph of f of x equals x minus 3 times x squared minus x minus 2 is shown. Find the zeros of f. So if I look at the graph, I'm looking for where it crosses the x-axis. So I can see it crosses at -1, 2, and 3. These are the x-intercepts, and the x-intercepts are also called the zeros. So the zeros are -1, 2, and 3. But the zeros of a function are not always integers. To approximate the zeros, we have to analyze the signs of the function values, which are the y's. When two values have different signs, a zero is in between those x values that correspond to the y values. So if we have a negative y and a positive y, we know a zero has to be somewhere in between those. To go from -1 to +1, we have to pass through 0 somewhere. So the graph of f of x equals x squared plus 4x plus 1 is given. Approximate the zeros. So if I'm looking at this graph, I can see that there's a 0 between -4 and -3, and also between -1 and 0. So I'm going to zoom in and find values that are really close to 0. So I know that they're between -4 and -3, -1 and 0. So if I make a table and I choose values that are close to 4, because it looks like this is close to 4, closer to 4 than 3. So if I start with -3.9, 3.8, and then -3.7, I'll get these y values. So you're going to take this x value, plug it in for x in your function, and then you get this y. So I can see here that these change signs. I go from a positive to a negative. So 0 has to be somewhere in between those, and -0.11 is closer to 0 than 0.24. So we're going to say the 0 is at about -3.7. We're going to do the same thing, but with between -1 and 0, and you're going to get these values. Again, we can see that we go from a positive 2.4 to a -0.11. And we know that this y value is closer to 0, so it is about -0.3. So the x values, the x-intercepts, are at about -3.7 and -0.3.